Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Door Bumper Clear. I'm Freddie Kraft, spotter for Bubba Wallace, Dean Thompson this week. Hi, Thomas.
What's up, Freddie?
How are you today?
I'm okay.
You still the competition director at Rick Ware Racing?
So far. Yeah.
Karsyn.
What's up, guys? Off a fresh weekend at Cordell, and I'm tired. But
I can't imagine why you're tired. The race only ran till about 3 in the morning.
Why does that schedule so suck? Why do we have to stay up like 11, 12 o'clock at night to watch these races?
it wasn't the schedule that had us up till 11, 12 o'clock at night. It was all the dumb that couldn't stop running into each other.
It's every car's
Bring
race.
caution.
It's way past my bedtime.
It was past mine, too.
The
Imagine
race-
how
the-
grouchy
Can we
I
start
was.
early?
Let's be
Earlier?
honest, the race started after your bedtime.
Yeah, honestly.
It started at 9?
Yeah,
I don't even know what time it started. But joining us in studio today, I posted this on Twitter. I probably told him this in person at the golf trip many times. But my favorite race car driver growing up, I grew up in Kings Park, New York, East Northport, where Steven grew up, was literally one town over. So had an attachment to him. My childhood was Steve Park, Mike Unitzko. That's all I cheered for. So welcome to the studio. Welcome to DBC, Steven.
Well, thanks, Freddie. Finally, you invited me. I've seen Baldwin on the show and obviously Karsyn for a long time. And all of a sudden I get a text from you like, hey, you want to come on the show on Monday? And I was like, yeah, why not? It's about time you invited me.
Yeah, well, the thing was, you were here last week dropping off cake, and it reminded me that you knew where the studio was.
Yeah, well, I knew where it was. And,
Who were you buttering up?
Thanks for that, by
well,
the way.
I'll tell you what had happened was Dale Jr. was talking on his podcast with Amy, and Amy wanted a carrot cake for her birthday. And Dale Jr. said, no, down south we do red velvet cakes. And she says, no, I want a carrot cake. And he says, well, I can just get you a red velvet cake. So a friend of mine owns a bakery, Dan, over at Eats and Sweets in Mooresville, and he said, I'll bake her a carrot cake, best carrot cake she ever had. I said, well, if you do that, I'll bring it to her. So he did it, and I brought it to her, and they were having their podcast, and I walked in, and he looked at me, he said, man, I knew it was you. He sees me carrying a box, he thought I brought him a present. And, usually when people come here, they bring Dale Jr. stuff,
True.
And I went over and I was walking towards him. And then I went over and said, here, Miss Amy, here's your carrot cake. And she opened it up and she was like, oh, my God. And she looked at Junior like, yeah, you are second.
Totally P2.
Yeah.
Just talking about growing. I mean, obviously for me growing up, I first time I saw you was driving the 81 car at Riverhead, I think. But your dad raced, your uncle raced. Just talk about growing up at Long Island. And did you start? I mean, I don't remember. Did you run anything before you ran the modifieds?
I ran the Pro 4 car. It's a funny story, and Tommy knows probably quite a bit of it. And I was racing go-karts at Eastern Karting Association, and I was probably 14, and we were winning a bunch of races and trying to move up in the divisions into like a modified go-kart. And the president of the club said to my dad, who was a racer, said, you get everybody's permission to let your young kid move up, and we'll let him do it. And so my dad went around, kind of ate crow, went up to everybody, signed a petition. They all signed it. And then the president of the club said, no, we decided we're not going to let him. And my dad said a few choice words and said, you know what, my kid can race a car at 16 years old, and you're not going to let him race in a modified go-kart. So it sparked my dad and myself into building our first car. And actually, I got a chance to run at that Islip Speedway, which I grew up at. Me and Tommy grew up at and watched our dads race, and never really knew it was going to close. And I got a chance to race there for a year and a half before it closed, and pretty proud. My dad won the last race at Islip Speedway.
Mine too.
Did he really?
Yeah, right after your dad.
All right, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool, though.
Actually, your dad won the last
the
race.
figure eights was the last race of the night.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So pretty cool stuff. And like I said, I got a chance to race. We lied about my age a little bit.
No.
And, that's what he did.
He still lies about his age.
Yeah.
Hasn't changed.
No.
So that, but the majority of the racing I did was at Riverhead. And I can always tell my true friends that call me Steven.
Yeah.
Everybody else calls me Steve.
Yeah.
And people I grew up with and family and friends always call me Steven. So that's when you know you're surrounded by good people.
Well,
I never called you Steve.
Not today.
I remember my dad always
I call
said
you a lot
Steven.
of other things.
Yeah,
you know?
he calls me a lot of things, but Steven's not one
Well,
of them.
I mean, moving forward, so obviously you had success at Riverhead. You moved up. You ran some of the, you guys had success on the modified tour at the time. I don't even know what was it. It was Featherlight probably then, I think. But then you get hooked up with Tommy. I mean, obviously you guys knew each other, but I mean, you guys had so much success in the Sheba car. Like, talk about those years and you two idiots working together.
Yeah. Well, you two idiots pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
But it's funny because, I mean, me and Tommy have known each other since we were probably 5 or 6 years old, and both of our dads raced. And we'd be, as little kids, we'd be underneath the grandstands, finding cigarettes and money falling out of people's pockets and stuff. And
Bart was smoking. I was.
Not many 6-year-olds smoke
Five,
cigarettes.
Started at 5 years old. Actually, I was selling the cigarettes at the bathroom when the guys were coming out of the bathroom. I was selling the cigarettes individually, so I had enough money to go racing. Yeah. So, but we grew up, like I said, at Islip and watched our dads race, and always kind of wish we could get together and race. And Tommy always grew up as a crew chief. He worked with his dad's team, and then ended up being a crew chief on his dad's team. And I grew up always wanting to drive and race. And, obviously we had a lot in common growing up on Long Island. And we kind of went in different paths. And when I started running the modified tour, I got my first opportunity in TG racing, number one car with United Ceramic Tile. And it kind of, took my early success and turned it into tour success, and then through all that, got the opportunity to drive in the 77 car, won the Thompson 300. Guys like Tommy kind of was noticing, hey, you know what, this kid's got something going on. We knew if we could get together, it'd be lights out, and we got a chance, to not only just talk about it, but then Tommy put it all together and put this team together and got me driving the car, and now it was time to perform, and perform we did. Yeah. So we unfortunately only had 2 years together.
No, it was only one.
Oh, the 1 year.
Yeah,
yep.
you ran 2 years, but Bono and I left after the first year.
And it was Bono, Kevin Bono Mannion, and Tommy and myself, and we had a great team looking back on it. And about a year after I joined the team, I should probably tell a story how I joined the team.
We talked about this. Tell the story.
This is way before marriage.
So this is funny.
It was a side bet.
Last night I told Tommy, I said, should we tell that story? And he said, I don't know. I said, are you going to get in trouble? He said, well, it's before marriage, but I still might get yelled at. I said, well, if Park brings it up, I'm not stopping him. So I said, you got it.
Well,
did you tee him up for this?
No, I swear to God, I didn't tell him.
Well, that's why when I said it, I looked at him, just because I can tell by his eyes.
You can tell the story.
I come in complaining about a race.
Freddie says it's okay.
Please tell the story.
All right, I'll tell the.
No, you just tell the story.
PG version.
We're screwed already.
You just tell it. Go ahead.
Well, I was driving for TG Racing in the one car, and we're having a lot of success. And Tommy's, obviously the 8 car, the Sunoco car, and the modified tour was one of the top teams. And when Tommy got involved being the crew chief, we got to the end of the one season, and we were testing somewhere together, or.
He gets his story messed up.
No, anyway, we're on an airplane. We were flying back.
We were at PRI.
Oh, we were at PRI, and then we were flying home.
Yeah.
Either way, you were flying home. I know that part.
We were flying home.
Yeah, we crossed paths over those couple days, but we were drinking. But then, but we crossed. Man, you gonna come drive? I don't know. I said, so then we started drinking.
Mm-hmm. And then we got on the airplane and we continued to drink. And I was really happy where I was at. It was a growing team, and we had some minor success, and it looked like we were going to have a lot more success. And Tommy's like, "You need to come drive for my team next year." And I was like, "Well, we're talking about it and drinking and talking about it." And he's like getting more adamant. "You got to come drive for me. You got to come drive for me." And I was like, "Well, I'm not really sure." He says. So he said, "All right, that's fine." So then he says, we were talking about other stuff. He says, "Well, when we get home," I said, "I need a ride." I said, "You got a car there?" He says, "No, my girlfriend's coming to pick me up." And I said, "That's cool." So we're again talking about going to drive
Still
for
drinking.
him. Still drinking. And he said, man, I can't wait for my girlfriend to come pick me up. She's going to have a long black trench coat on with nothing on underneath it. And I was like, there ain't no way. I said, if that's true, I'm driving for you next year. That's how the bet went.
Yep.
And so we get off the airplane. We're stumbling off the airplane, and we're laughing. And sure enough, his girlfriend's there in a long black trench coat and
High heels, black
high
heels.
heels. And I turned around. Tommy turned around. He smiled, and we high-fived. We said, we're going racing next year.
And that's how we started.
And that's how the Sheba,
And
Tommy-
that's how the modified infamy started.
I mean, I've told that story 1,000 times, and it's never
That's
not funny.
incredible.
You know what's funny? If you look at old NASCAR days, there was so many handshake deals and deals done, in bars and stuff like that. Contracts written on napkins. So it's just pretty funny when you get down to the true nitty gritty of it.
Speaking of that, and speaking of stories you probably told 1,000 times, you got to tell the people that have not, that aren't familiar with maybe all your background, the story about Dale calling you to drive the Busch car.
Well, it's pretty funny. I was racing. Actually, Tommy was gone, Bono was gone, and I was racing the last year for them and trying to get my opportunity to come down south. And I had numerous people calling me because I was just beating everybody's phone up and going to meet everybody I could at the racetrack. And I had gotten to meet Richard Childress through Bobby Hutchins, who was a modified guy. And when Mike Skinner was going from the 3 truck to the Cup Series, I knew the seat was going to open up in the 3 truck. So I was just hounding Bobby Hutchins to get me a meeting with Richard, and he introduced me to Richard. And Richard took an interest, and then he was telling Dale, he's like, you got to watch this kid in New Hampshire. And there was a rain outside. I think we were racing the modified, then the Busch North car, and then the truck. And we'd win a race, and I'd be like 2 minutes in victory lane. I'd run down pit road to get into the modified car, and then the truck series, which was sponsored by Pennzoil.
Yeah.
And then I get a phone call out of the blue because back then, we didn't have all these cell phones.
Yeah.
And I had a digital answer machine at home, so the only time you checked your messages is when you went home. So I go home from racing on a weekend, and there's a message on my machine, and it was Dale, and he was like, Steve Park, this is Dale Earnhardt. You need to give me a call. I want to talk to you. And he was, you see Dale on TV, he's not that nice. So I'm thinking it's a friend,
Yeah,
somebody playing a joke, somebody messing around. And so I didn't call him back. I was like, I didn't tell nobody, because I didn't want people to say, yeah, that was us sitting in the bar. How come everything starts with a bar?
Everything's in the bar. Yeah.
And then another week goes by, and I come back, and I'm listening to my messages. All of a sudden, Steve Park, Dale Earnhardt, what's wrong with you, man? Come back. And I was like, oh. So I was like, maybe that is him. So I called my mom on the phone, and I'm playing the answer machine because she watches TV and racing more than I did because I was always racing. And she goes, man, that's Dale. You better call him back. So I call back, and the Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, they answer the phone, and I tell them who I am, and they're like, oh, man, Dale's been trying to get a hold of you. Hang on a second. They put me on hold. Now I'm sweating. I'm like getting ready to pass. I'm like, is Earnhardt going to be the guy that picks the phone up? And it wasn't. It was Ty Norris or Don Hawk or one of the guys, and they're like, man, Dale's been trying to get a hold of you. We want to send a plane up to come pick you up. And I got to, people don't know the whole story, but I got to tell it because it's so interesting because Randy Smith, my spotter.
Cheap Randy.
They said they're sending the plane up to Hartford to the FBO. You know where it's at? I said, yeah. And they said, we're going to fly you. We're going to come pick you up, fly you to Richmond where Dale's testing, and then pick up Dale, and then go back to North Carolina, and then we'll fly you home a day later. So I tell Randy, I said, I need a ride to the airport. I said, Dale Earnhardt sending this plane to come pick me up. He's like, you're right. He's like, he ain't coming. He ain't sending you no plane or nothing. I'm like, I'm telling you, he's sending me a plane tomorrow. I need a ride to the airport. So he gives me a ride to the airport the whole entire time, thinking I'm a jerk. He's like, Earnhardt's not sending the plane. And so we go to the airport, and we're waiting. And, about 20 minutes late, all of a sudden this Learjet comes pulling up with the Earnhardt crest on the tail. And I'm like, man, I told you to send the plane for me. And two of his pilots got off the plane. They're like, Steve Barg. And I said, yes, sir. He said, you ready to go? We got to take a leak. I said, hell no, I don't think I'm going to take a leak for a week. And so then we get on the airplane, and I'm in the back of the Learjet all by myself. The two pilots are in the front. I'm looking out the little window, and Randy's looking out the window of the FBO, and I'm waving, and he's waving like two little kids, like we're never going to see each other again. Like Earnhardt kidnapped him, and he's never coming back. And sure enough, we went to Richmond, and we sat at the airport in Richmond, and I'm sitting with the two pilots, and I don't even know what to expect. Earnhardt's not there, and they're like, well, when he gets done testing, he's going to be here, and he's going to want to go. And, Dale was always never waited for anybody. Yeah. So never met me before. And next thing you know, the door opens up. He comes in like Elvis. He comes in. He's like, Park? I'm like, yes, sir. He says, come on, let's go. And I'm like, I jump up. I'm like, go where? And, so I just followed him out to the airplane. And next thing you know, me and Dale are sitting in the back of his plane. Me and Dale Earnhardt are sitting in the back of his plane.
First time you met him.
First time I ever met him. By ourselves. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? How am I going to act? And I'm like thinking about my racing career and how to tell him. And he's like, so tell me about how you grew up. And I'm telling him growing up on Long Island. And he's like, well, what did your dad do? What did your mom do? And I'm like for hours, we're talking about my family and my parents. And I'm like, when is he going to ask me about racing? Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, well, you want to know a little bit about my racing career? And he's like, no, I know all about your racing career. Yeah, I want to know more about you personally, like your family, where you grew up, how you grew up. And so that was just the type of guy he was. He wanted to know more about you. And like I said, your racing career is public knowledge. It's easy enough to look up, what your past was and what you did in the past. He said, I know about your racing career. I just want to know more about you and your family. So, yeah, pretty cool.
Awesome. Tommy, I'm sure you guys could talk about modified racing.
Oh, we out of time?
Back then there was no social media.
Yeah.
And we were at the point of our lives. And
this is like mid 90s,
94. We made a pact that we had to do everything we possibly could to get to the next steps, and we were going to promote ourselves because there's no social media, and we were going to promote ourselves as much as we can. But the only way we were going to be able to promote ourselves was to win. We had to win, and man, we were fast right off the truck in the beginning of the year, but we had for some reason a lot of stupid things, failures, dumb things happen, engine failures, some stuff going on, leading. Should have won. I think we won the last 7 out of 11 races on the tour.
Yeah.
But we should have won probably 11 out of 16. I mean, we were fast, and I think we lost the championship to Tony Hirschman by 3 points.
He was telling me about it last night.
By 3 points. Yeah. And
in the first half of the year,
we did nothing. We broke leading.
Yeah.
I mean,
leading break.
Yeah, and just stuff. I mean, I think we were on the pole at Nazareth by almost a second that year, and we were leading. We were gone that race too to Spring Sizzle. I can go on, but we had a lot of success. But we did a really good job that year, making sure when we did have success, we promoted ourselves in the racing papers. We got with a certain writer that we made a pact with him that this is our goal and we need help, and he agreed to help us. So. Not only was the story about when we won in the paper, it was also a story about us, So he did a really good job of helping promoting us back in the day. And at the beginning of the year, I had a choice. We sat down. We won the last race at Thompson. We lost by 3 points, and it was Bono and I sitting with the car owners of Sheba Racing, Scott and Patty at the time, and we offered them a deal to stay, and. We weren't getting paid. I mean, I was walking around with $3 in my pocket back then, all day long.
All of us were.
Well, all of us were. Park was getting paid. He always was getting paid. But, but Bono and I, we had nothing. So we had to make try to make a deal with him, and he didn't want to do it. So I don't know how it worked out. The next day or 2 days later, Greg Sachs called me. He says, "Hey man, the new Miami race was getting ready to happen in 2 weeks." He said, "Hey man, I need some help. Can you come crew chief my Busch car back then?" I said, "Yeah, I got Bono." I said, "Yeah, I only needs to get set up, and she's ready to go." So I said, "All right, so I'll fly you down. I'll put you up in a good hotel." Greg was
Superman.
he was the badass in the '80s. He was probably the most dominant modified racer back then. Obviously won the Firecracker 400 in the Cup race, and always was still get along with him really good. But Bono and I went down there and worked our guts out for 3 days. The car didn't even have a crush panel or radiated ductwork in, and we never
still didn't get paid.
Still didn't get paid. And Bono and I, we didn't know how to do any of that. We worked on modified, so Bono and I, we looked at each other and said, "All right, let's get to work." And we got the car there. We qualified sixth. I think there was like 67 cars that day. Qualified sixth, and Bono and I was sitting in the hotel, and I looked at him. I said, "Man, we can do this. We can come down here and do this." So between the day car saying no and that weekend, come Thanksgiving time, I was just fed up in Long Island. I was sitting there with no money. My dad was doing everything he possibly could for me, but he had, I was old enough that I needed to start taking care of myself, right?
Plus, our parents were racing,
Yep.
so they were funding their own racing.
Yeah, I mean, it was
operations.
just it was enough's enough, right? You gotta set them free. So I woke up one morning and I called Bono. I said, "I'm leaving at 4:00 tomorrow morning. Are you coming or not?" And he's up in Massachusetts. I was in Long Island at the time. And he said, I said, I'm leaving. I'm going down. I'm going to chase a dream. You coming or not? And Bono said, I'll call you back. Well, 4 hours later, he called me back. "All right, on my way." So he took a ferry over with his pickup truck. He had a red pickup truck. He had 2 suitcases, a stereo, and 2 garbage bags worth of clothes. We loaded up my dad's trailer with some furniture and stuff with all this, backed his pickup truck at my dad's shop, which is ours still today, for sale, best offer, and we were gone. We went down to North Carolina with a dream, and here we are today.
And Steven was at home going, "What the I just lost my crew
yeah,
chief."
Yeah, I was.
We did a lot of work on the phone that year.
Yeah.
We helped. We did a lot of pre-set up stuff on the phone. Got him. He had success there the next year, but it was time. Again, we were building our careers, and we just left it there. A year early, and obviously Bono's had a bunch of success, and Steven did too.
Tommy did too.
Yeah, he's
Daytona
been
500
so bad.
winner
Yeah,
and
Southern 500.
Probably the one thing that we miss is that I got a chance to drive for him when he owned his own team.
What'd that pay?
I think he still owes me money. We were laughing about that during
I
the
just
golf
paid
tournament.
back for me working for free for him for a year. I'm like, hell with him.
See, it always works out.
Yeah, I don't forget.
It's funny because what did that pay? Hell, it reminds me. I think he still owes me for that one.
He threw me $100 last night. I almost fell on the floor.
Oh,
he said, "That's the
damn.
last one." He said, "That's the last one you'll ever see now."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have went last night if I knew Tommy was throwing
the
money
bartender's always like, same as always, putting on Freddie's account. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah. But I always throw him cash to make up for it.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and then he broke my balls, and I'm like, no more cash for you.
But it's just funny because, like Tommy said, when we got a chance, when they got a chance to go down south, I mean, my crew chief and my car chief all left at the same time, and Tommy really, didn't. I'm like, "Man, you're bailing on me," and he didn't bail on me. We worked a lot by phone with setups and stuff, and I had to step up a little bit more with the crew chief and make sure if we had issues with the car that we had ways to correct it. And I can't tell you how many times I called him and said, "Tommy, we're stuck in a hole here. What do we need to do?" And he'd be like, "Do this, that, and the other thing." And sure enough, we'd go on and win. So
Yeah, and I
but
mean,
it motivated me to go down south too.
Yeah, for
it's-
sure.
If you don't risk all, I don't care what it is, if it's racing, business, or whatever somebody's doing. The people that you ever see that are really successful, the ones that give up everything,
risked it all. Yeah,
risk it all. It's like either Tommy always had a famous saying. I don't know if he remembers this. He says, "Stick with me, you'll be wearing diamonds." And think about it. Think about Daytona, Daytona 500. The guys that stuck with them were wearing diamonds, and we worked really hard in the latter part of my career to try to get back together and race for Bill Davis. and we had a couple sponsors that were showing some interest, but some things really just never really worked out. But that's the one thing that I wish that in my career that we had a shot to get back together and race at the highest level.
Yeah, it would have been fun. Actually, I think you finished 13th in the old TBR car at Daytona.
Yeah, we're running 7th, and the shock fell off the left rear.
The shock mount broke. It was notorious for those cars for that mount to break. It wasn't my fault, Freddie, so don't give me that look.
Yeah. Was that the Richie Evans car?
Yeah.
That was fun.
Hey, it's Dale Jr., and for the latest DBC gear, we need you to go to shop.dirtymomedia.com. We've got plenty of options, and we're adding new stuff all the time. Shop.dirtymomedia.com.
Tony Stewart, Rory McIlroy.
That's what you want to talk about now?
Well, I mean,
I need to fix the rope on your hat.
I want to
fix my rope, please.
Let everybody
It's like-
understand, because this goes in
jacked
theme
up.
with Park some. So
What?
I have no idea where he's going with this.
I'm lost.
Tony Stewart now.
So what are you thinking of weather out here?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
High of
don't know
80
where-
today. It's
I
gonna
don't
be
know
nice.
where this is going.
I don't know if a lot of people know, but Tony Stewart won NHRA race.
Yeah, top fuels for
Oh, yeah.
fuel
Fuel
race
for
last
Simon.
night.
So that means he has pretty much won everything. I mean, Rory McIlroy yesterday,
Completes the Grand Slam.
Grand Slam. So there's only 3 people in this world that has kind of done the same thing in our sport. And one of them is Steve Park. He has won modified, he has won a truck, Xfinity, and a cup race. You know who the other 2 are?
I've done all that? No. Go ahead and tell me.
Tony Stewart and Jimmy Spencer.
Spencer.
Those are the only 3 that
have
have
won
ever
modified.
won all those divisions.
I want a pro stock race too.
Yeah,
Spencer
yeah.
win a pro stock race.
Yeah.
I got one up him somehow.
Yeah. But
Jimmy's a
Into
great
it.
guy.
you know,
We've-
the thing about Tony Stewart, he has won in every major motorsport except for Formula One.
And that's just because he never run Formula One.
I mean, and if you can think about that, at all the things that he's achieved, just it's awesome, man. And
It's incredible.
so
It is incredible.
You know, Hirsch, last night we were having dinner with Hirschman after the race was over, and he said to ask you if you remembered, he spotted for your first
Dinner.
Was it Bush North, I guess?
It was
Probably.
Bush North at Nazareth.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, he was one of the best spotters. And
He was. He sucks now.
does he? well, I think you are now, Freddie. But we always had an underfunded Bush North car, and
yeah, that thing was cheated
It
up.
was a white Oldsmobile, and everybody had the new Monte Carlos. And
09,
we
right?
we ran the Oldsmobile because they had less body templates. and we'd build a brand new car and put old dad's Oldsmobile body on it. And people were like, oh yeah, these guys are suffering, And we were doing a few things that were making the car pretty fast, but we went to Nazareth again. We'd run maybe 7 races in the year, and we'd go to Nazareth and scrape together a crew, and Hirschman spotted for us, and we went out there and we were fast, and we ended up going on and winning the race. And we're all we all get hyped up behind the wheel of the car, and we get yelling and cussing, and he runs at this even keel.
Yeah, just
where,
like a Hirschman.
it's like a Hirschman, where he just the soothing voice was just something that everybody needs when they're getting all hyped up. But very informative, and just did a good job, and we laugh about it till today.
Yeah. Last night he's like, you got to make sure he remembers that. I said, I'm sure he doesn't forget.
I don't forget that.
What else did he want to remind us?
I don't remember.
Oh, his dad was also up
His
for the
dad
ride.
his dad was the one talking.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't. Big Tony's never actually gonna talk shit. So
Yeah.
he wanted us to remind you that you guys lost that championship by whatever it was.
3
3
points.
points.
But I was talking to Tony to drive the 8 car as well.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't get on the plane with you that night.
No. And
He paid us
I
back.
think he would have fainted if he saw what Park seen.
I can't believe that.
Oh man. Anyway, we'll make you stop telling stories for a little while. We'll talk about some racing. Bristol Thomas, bit of a snoozer,
Yeah.
you could say. I think Larson led the whole race. It seems like. The thing that I think going into the weekend, I was kind of an unknown. We talked about this in the suite before the race, and it was tires. We went out there, practiced on Friday or Saturday, and we were cording tires in 30, 40 laps. I knew Larson was in that first group, and I saw him. He ran about 30 laps and got out of his car, and there were still, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes left. I go, oh, we're having tire problems again. And we kind of expected that a little bit with the cold temps again, but then just the drastic difference. We talked about it. It was 15 degrees hotter track temp when we started the race than it was the day before, and we had no issues whatsoever. I mean, on the crew chief side, like, how do you prepare for that?
Well, I think everybody thought the same thing. I mean, that the times backed off. As soon as Bowman set pace there, he backed it up about a half a second. Then all of a sudden, the 5-car took off, went to the outside and inside, and took the lead. And he took off, and it was like, all right, I guess we're not going to have any issues. But Bristol and Martinsville, when the tracks are green, they cord. I mean, if we ever do a rain out at Martinsville, and if we start with no practice, no qualifying, we are going to cord tires at Martinsville the first run. The cars. Let me take that back. The cars that are going to be really good at the end will cord tires the first run. They will have some issues, and I think you've seen some of that on Saturday. The track, was kind of green. They did race, but they put down the PJ1 and did the stuff. And I mean, at the end of the day, I still think the tire was too hard, especially the left side tire is too hard, which was making the right side tire wear more. The softer you make the left side, the more energy it takes away from the right side tires. So they probably need to work on that a little bit, also to make the racing a little bit better. But look, I'm up there with you guys. There is going on around that racetrack the whole race.
Yeah.
It wasn't boring.
No, it wasn't bad.
Right?
Yeah.
If you were there in the stands, right, the people in the stands, I'm telling you, probably enjoyed that race because there was some passing, there was some stuff going on, but TVs can't show all of that, right?
Yeah.
They can only focus on certain things. But the race was good. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on, especially after probably the lap 100 when the top groove rubbered up a little bit. It got racy, but the 5-car or the 11-car, or when they get in that zone, man, they can make.
Turns out they're hard to beat.
Yeah, I mean, they're just good. I mean, you can't be mad. I love dominating races, right? When we go racing, I love to kick everybody's ass. That's what we do. That's what we're supposed to do, right? And the 5-car did it. And kudos to them. Kudos to the whole Hendrick Motorsports team for producing that. But it was a good race. I don't think it was. Yeah, he made it a snorer, but a lot of stuff going on.
But the other thing too, from a driver's standpoint, it's always fun to watch Kyle Larson. And it's got to be his dirt background where he is so good at searching around where he's finding grip. Yeah. And I mean, even like 3 laps ago, he bounced it off the wall in 1 and 2. He went in high
still going,
and went over the cushion, but that's normal for him.
And like you said, and you see that everywhere we go, that you have to, Homestead, Bristol, everywhere we go, or you're searching for speed somewhere, he's always the guy you base everything off of. Oh, the 5 moved here, he's found it. Now you're trying to get your guy to do that. So to your point, it's that's the guy you.
They can't though.
A lot of times you can't. Like especially Homestead or like places like there's obviously nobody. Reddick might be the closest one, but I still think nobody can run the fence like him pretty much anywhere. Like he just has that feel where he can carry so much entry speed and you just can't combat it. But yeah, what else? Xfinity. Well, guess what? Kyle Larson killed that one again too. Truck race is pretty good. I thought. That was an interesting race. They started, like you said, to start the race on a green racetrack because it rained all day, and you saw guys cord tires at the end of that first one. I know we're going to get to some comments that Lane Riggs made, but same thing. Like it's kind of an unexpected. You don't know what to expect there when the weather's temperature's down.
Yeah. Did they have a competition caution? I missed the first part of the
truck race had a competition caution to 20 or 25.
Okay. So they did the right thing.
But the funny that obviously you crew chiefs like. All right, we're going to give you a comp caution to see your tires. Well, I don't want to give up my track position, So now
they don't take it.
So they don't take it. And then you got guys cording tires.
I mean,
that's on you, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's your decision. But yeah, it was a fun weekend of racing, I thought. Karsyn, how was your weekend?
It was something. It's always something when Dale comes to race with us. It's about 80 million more people there. But we had a good car count for going to Cordell for the first time. Cordele. I'm never going to pronounce it right. We had a good car count. We had 60 cars between both divisions and a lot of new faces in the pros. But unfortunately, to be honest, both of our races were kind of a show.
They're on my list. Don't worry.
Yeah, I said it before we started. I said I'm probably going to nominate the Karsyn for shit show of the week. I love it, but yeah, it was fun though. Overall, good weekend, good racetrack. We only sent one into the watermelon field, so can't complain too. Old Doug, yeah.
Did Doug complain about the charges? Did they charge him to park out there?
About see, just overall.
Let me ask you a question because you'll know this. What did Stafford used to charge to test?
A lot.
What's Thompson? I mean, now you're
a lot more than what he was getting charged on Thursday. I mean, look, I mean, when you go test down here, it's about the same price everywhere. It's $125 an hour, pretty much. I mean, they're not charging much, and they do minimums 2 hours, 3 hours. Because they got to get an ambulance if you want. Safety.
You have to have track personnel there.
You got to have stuff to do, and I mean, and to everybody's the track and the Cars Tours defense, Thursday's not one of their days.
You don't have to go on Thursday.
Yeah.
We do a whole 5-hour test day on Friday and charge you $200.
Yeah, so. I mean, I seen that and I was like, well, I don't know what he's
you're still there
complaining about.
But
I remember like when I was with Partridge, it was like thousands of dollars.
To
test it, Thompson or Stafford or like. I was like, so when I saw that, like, he's complaining about like $600. I was like, that didn't seem so bad. But I guess some of the places are a little bit less than that. I guess. But yeah, I had a little fun with that. And I like Doug. Doug's a good race car driver. So I saw him when I saw that. Did you see the picture of him parked out there in the water? Did you see? I don't know if you.
Your tweet was funny.
So they ran at Cordele and. There's no backstretch wall, but there's a watermelon field right behind it. So the poor kid got shoved off the racetrack, and then there's just a picture of him out, like the overhead shot. He's just out there parked in the middle of this watermelon patch. So, but yeah, it was. I like to torture people sometimes.
I think you need to start those races like at 12 in the afternoon.
Oh my God. That one, it was not the schedule, Tommy.
It was
not the schedule. We start at 7.
Every Cars Tour race doesn't end till midnight.
That's bull.
Only the ones with the pros. I felt like the pro race. I mean, I know that the end of the late model stock race got a little ugly, but the pro race,
it was ugly from start to finish.
Yeah, it was on over here. Somebody had Nick Payne on his iPad, and every time I looked over, the one wreck looked like Talladega in turn one.
There was
a lot of missed shifts in both races.
Yeah, it's because people are playing restart games.
Yeah.
So there's no way everybody all of a sudden just forgot how to shift. So
let's get Kip fixing this, will you?
Yeah.
Well, we're working on it.
I'll tell you one thing I did want to point out about Friday night's race. Bailey Curry did a really, really good job. Didn't get the finish he deserved. I think he broke a drive shaft or something. But that kid has always had a lot of speed, and sometimes doesn't always finish the deal. But like that, I thought he was.
Bailey's really good there.
Yeah, he was good there, and but he was in position, I thought, to win that race. He lost a little track position on one of the restarts. Heim got him, and then but then obviously he was running, I think, third or fourth and broke a drive shaft. But he had a really good night. I was kind of pulling for him to win or close that deal out, but unfortunately, some bad luck for him. I don't know. Tony Stewart, top fuel in my notes here. I guess
Jesse Love made his Cup debut.
Jesse Love did make his Cup debut. He was really good. He qualified decent. He qualified better than us. He was, I don't even know where he was, 15, 17, something in that range.
Yeah.
And then he got stuck on the outside early in the race. He was in front of us. Somebody kind of moved him up off the bottom, and he got stuck and just never was able to get down and went from like 18th, 19th back to probably, I would say, 30th.
Yeah.
And then he was just, now you're back there, you get lapped, and then you're just clawing uphill battle the rest of the day, which that place is just, you get going, and it's hard to pass to start. Everybody's the same speed when we fire off, and then the next thing you know, if you're back there the last 10 cars in line, the leader's on your ass in, 20 laps maybe, if that.
Yeah, our goal was to make sure by the end of the first stage, we needed to be 26th or better in order not to get lapped, and I think he lapped up to Priest was the lucky dog at 25th. So I was kind of hoping that the pace would slow down so that wouldn't happen. Once the 5 car took off after he got the lead, I'm like, here we go. Yeah. And he just started going through, caught them guys and just went through them. But,
where'd you end up yesterday? I mean, I don't even know.
34th and 31st.
I know you got I did contact with, who was that, SVG? Kind of bounced off the side and spun out.
No, I don't.
Well, yeah.
It was Cody's fault. I think he was guarded not to get to the outside and crowded SVG a little too tight, and got SVG down on the bottom and caught that and got loose. And Cody made a nice save, but I was hoping, the 01 was running really good. Corey was running really good. I think he got up to like 25th or 26th, and that long green flag got him. They gambled, and tried to stay out, try to catch a caution, and it never happened, and they fell way behind after that.
Yeah, there wasn't many cautions.
Yeah.
It was funny because in the early stages of that race, even Ty Gibbs got up on the outside.
Yeah.
And he went backwards. And he did a good job kind of losing maybe 8 spots and muscling his way back down to the bottom. But then you see later on in the race, guys going to the top and moving forward.
Yeah.
So it's like,
It's just
They rubbered up.
Yeah, I think
Rubbered up.
when that PJ1 track bite, whatever it is, gets kind of activated right away in the beginning of the race, early in the run. It's funny because you want to pick the outside lane because the outside lane rolls for about a lap and a half, 2 laps on a restart. So you pick the outside, but then if you can't get down in within 3 or 4 laps, now you're
back.
you're kind of screwed unless somebody. Poor Riley, I felt bad yesterday. What happened to Ty was, we all kind of teammates. You all talk about it, and nobody wants to be stuck, especially early in the race when it happened to Ty was. The spring race last year, if you ran the outside at all, you killed your tires. Like you could not. So we all got to get to the bottom right away. So we had talked about in our hauler with, if anybody's hung out of line, let's try to let them in. And I think Ty, I forget who was back there, maybe the 19, I can't remember who it was, but they tried to let Ty in, and Ty just continued to try to move forward. And then by the time they got back to where the hole was, that they were like, all right, well, if you don't want it, I'm going to go on. And then Ty lost a bunch of spots. So sometimes it's just situational awareness, dude, is this one spot I'm trying to chase really worth maybe giving up 10 or 15?
How do you handle that as a spotter? If a teammate is creating a hole for you and then you're telling the driver, okay, drop back one more, there's an opening for you.
So we had it.
And they keep going on the outside.
Yeah, well, that's for me, I don't know, Hirschman probably, I don't know how good, for me and Bubba, it would be, hey, dumb back up, you got to go back here. We're going to get hung. But and it's for me, Steven, it's all right, Riley's letting you in because Riley heard so in yesterday at the beginning of the race.
Yeah.
And it's Riley's going to let you in. And Bubba knew yesterday he had to back up. It's like I said, it's situational awareness for both of us. I got to know, he's got to know. That means get the down.
Yeah.
But Ty continued to go on. Now, if that's me, I'm like, all right, Riley is letting you down. I'll give it a couple stern, hey, we got to back up. Not saying just blatantly we got to back up. And then the third one's probably just, all right, dumbass, listen, we got to go back there. But yeah, and I felt bad for Riley yesterday because it's Riley and Tyler, who are our 2 teammates, are nose to tail, and Riley kind of backs up and creates a hole to let us in. And as soon as he lets us in, Tyler goes to the next corner, pops him up off the bottom, and knocks him into the outside. I was like, damn, Tyler, I thought we were all working together.
That was not the plan.
Yeah, obviously.
But we'll get into it more with the Lane Riggs comments. But one thing I did want to talk about. John Edwards unfortunately passed away this week. John Edwards, Al Pierce, the same day, I assume. I didn't know Al very well at all. I know he's a journalist that a lot of people. I saw Jeff Gluck, Bianchi, pretty much everybody on that side of things was commenting about how influential he was. But John Edwards was somebody I knew a little bit, and just a guy that always had a smile, always had a joke when you walk past him in the garage. Just somebody you always look forward to running into at the racetrack.
Yeah, John was a really, really good guy. If you needed anything from Hendrick or any questions asked you, everyone would always go to him. He would be that guy that could get all the information or whatever you needed. And it's a shame that happened. And Al was a gentle giant. He was still, I think he was still writing for Order Week magazine, but he back in the 80s and 90s, he was in the garage a lot. He was a local. I can't remember what local paper he was writing for, but I think he also did some stuff for the NASCAR Winston Scene paper and stuff. And I think a lot of people looked up to him back then and learned a lot from him. He was one of those writers that asked if it was okay to ask you these questions before they asked you these questions. He gave you a kind of a debrief of what he was thinking, and which allowed you to answer the questions correctly, right? Don't go off emotions. He always, to everybody, did that, and he wrote some good stuff. We're going to miss him in our industry, both of them.
Yeah, for sure. Last time I saw John was in Vegas, a couple weeks ago. I saw him before. Last time I sat down and was talking to John, and he was telling me a story. He had won some money out there. He did pretty well, and he went to the cashier to cash it in, and they were like, all right, well, we don't see where you won this money on the cameras. He's like, well, I was sitting at this table over here the whole time. He's like, I was over there for 6 hours playing. I don't know how you don't have me on the camera. So they went through this whole big thing, and and they wouldn't pay him. Like he's like, they're not going to pay me the money. So he's like, all right, well, whatever. So then he said, I got out of line, got back in line with a portion of the money I won. Went to the chain, like a third of what I won. Went to the cashier. Oh, no problem. Here you go. Cashed it out.
What?
Got back in line with the second, third. No problem. He goes, I got all my money, but it's just
and that was perfect. That's a perfect analogy of John. He got done very quietly, right? He gambled and won a lot of money. He didn't see him. Then he was getting ready to get screwed, but he did it very methodically. And got it. I mean, that's a perfect analogy.
He was just. I mean, he was one of the best, man. But so. Thinking about them, their family, everybody. I mean, they touched so many people in the sport. You saw it all day, whatever it was, Wednesday or Thursday. But anyway, Karsyn, I guess we can.
Spot on, spot off. Lane Riggs, talking about the PJ1, says NASCAR really knows how to screw a racetrack up following the truck race Friday night. Spot on, spot off. Freddie, sounds like you.
Did you get to race when the line moved up?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
After they kind of put the progressive banking in there or whatever?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, but I never really raced when they used the PJ1.
Yeah, no, yeah.
They started using that after I kind of retired.
Which Bristol did you prefer? Like right around the bottom, or when you were able to kind of search around a little bit?
Well, I mean, to me, it was always right around the bottom. It was one of those deals where, if you couldn't hold your car in the bottom, and then tried to, that's when you got the bump and run.
Yeah.
Not the dump and run, but you got the bump and run. And, and then there was times where, you didn't mean to run up off the bottom, but you got in too hard and your car wouldn't hold the bottom and you'd run up off the bottom and somebody just give you a little bit of a nudge. And when you got to the outside, you got freight train. So that was the old Bristol for the longest time. And when they went to the progressive banking, I know people did run the outside. And before the PJ1, if you had guys that would run the outside, they would actually start to put rubber down on the outside, and then more people would move out there. But it would take these guys like a Larson, which wasn't around when I was around, that would just venture to the outside and commit themselves, even if they were going backwards to the outside. And then you get 2 or 3 guys up there, and then next thing you know, another half a groove would open up.
It used to be fun to watch Larson do this. They would put the PJ1 on the bottom, and Larson, we'd all run the bottom for like half a practice back when we practiced for like 2 hours. And Larson would run the bottom, see how his car was, and then he would be the first one. He'd move to the top. Well, there's so many marbles because we're all running the bottom. All the marbles would go up the racetrack. So Larson would go up, and like you said, he would be a second slower when he started. He would go up there. He would start to get a little rubber in. Then he'd move to the bottom to clean his tires up because the tires, had all the on them. So he'd move to the bottom, get his tires cleaned up, go back up there, and as he did it the whole practice, he would see, all right, now it's a half a second, now it's 2/10. Okay, now they're the same speed. And once the top lane becomes the same speed as the bottom, it's basically top dominant because you can't complete a pass on the bottom if the top lane is as fast as the bottom lane is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think by the end of the race, depending on how your car was handling, I don't think either lane was. I thought it was pretty even. It just all depended on who was comfortable where they were running and what the car was doing. I mean, again, I think it was a good race, but just got dominated by the guy that's really good at dominating races.
Our crew chief Charles radioed into me at one point. He said, "All right, top started to come in," and I said, "Well, I get that." I said, "But I see the one coming. The one was really good at running the top."
Yeah.
And I said, "I see him coming." I said, "But." Chase, it was Chase right behind us. It was Chase, Austin Dillon, and then the one. And Chase moved up to the top because he saw the one coming. And as soon as he moved to the top, the 3 just drove by him on the bottom. And they're like, the top's coming in. I go, well, I can't, maybe for some, but not everybody. I said, Chase just moved up and got drove by. So it's like, it was just car dependent.
What was good about, sorry to cut you short, but I'm not. But
you never apologize when you cut me off.
No. But the Ross had an advantage because he started, it sounds weird, but Ross had an advantage starting in the back, so he got a chance to work the top without any pressure. People behind him, right? If somebody tried doing that from 2nd to 15th, this really, really fast race cars, they're going to get you. But Ross started early. Ross was one of the first guys that started moving because he had to make hay. He had to get up there. I mean, to start where he started and finish where he finished, that's pretty impressive at a place like Bristol, not of moving up like that. So there was a lot of different stuff going on that the people watching TV, you got to notice what's going on, and I'm hoping the fans at the track, notice that type of stuff, But when that happened, a bunch of guys happened between 12th and 18th. Whenever they went up, they fell back 5, 6, 7 spots. But as the track got going, it was pretty racing.
Yeah, and I like to Steven's point. I think that, like, I prefer it. I would rather we just lay the strip down on the bottom and all run the bottom the whole race, because you see guys be more aggressive. Like, I saw the end of the Xfinity race for us, especially, like the 88 had a bunch of damage and you couldn't pass him. He was just fast enough up top to where, we were way better than him, but just couldn't complete a pass because the top lane was so dominant at that point. I shouldn't say dominant, but top lane was as fast or maybe a little better than the bottom, so it was hard to complete the pass. In that situation, it's hard to be aggressive, because if you're on the bottom, when you run on the bottom back in the old school days, you can get in the guy, move him up the racetrack a little bit, and he just went to the outside lane and probably lost a couple spots until he can get back down. You can't be that aggressive when you're all running the fence, because you get in the back of a guy, now he's probably going to hit the fence. Now he's going to stop in front of you, and so now
jack up the whole
it's going to
outside.
have to, so then it forces these guys to be less aggressive because they don't want to hurt themselves. And it's just, I feel like the racing's. I know Lane was upset because he won this race last year, and he felt like they corded tires early. They were the ones lost a lap. He had to battle back. I don't think Chandler minded. His teammate Chandler didn't mind the racetrack being different. But so it's obviously a case by case basis with Lane's comments. But listen, you say it ruins the racetrack. I think that that's what they need to try to get back to, is getting us to run the bottom, because I feel like it's a more exciting race. You'll be more guys getting to guys, knocking them up off the bottom a little bit, and I think it'll be more fun to watch versus just like what we saw the Xfinity race. It was, guys had new tires, 50 lap newer tires, and were struggling to pass us, and it's just. I really wish that we get back to and probably just it's probably a freezing cold take, but it's just I want to see him on the bottom and kind of rooting and gouging a little bit more.
All right, moving on. Topic 2, William Sawalich said he never got the message to check up on Saturday, and to that point, Conor Zilisch says every week it's something with Sawalich. Spot on, spot off, Tommy.
I seen the replay. I don't even know how he couldn't see it himself. I don't understand.
That was what I was going to ask Steven. Like, I know obviously spotters play a role, and it happens fast at Bristol. It's probably 3 or 4 seconds every straightaway, so like happens quick there. But like, and that's and you're coming to a wreck. I know we're there to help you, but I got to assume that like you're not just solely relying on us. It's more you, and we're just kind of a voice in the back of your head.
Like you're using your own eyeballs a little bit, right?
You have to use your own eyeballs, and Bristol is so fast. Getting around there in 15, 16 seconds, and when the pace slows down, it kind of eases up a little bit. But it's still a fast racetrack, and as it's you can't be driving off the nose of your car. You got to be driving at least 2 or 3 or 4 cars ahead, and especially when they get too wide and the outside groove opens up. I remember, when I drove, there was never noise and there was never heat. It was always like playing a chess game and watching what was going on in front of you, and checking up yourself, saying, "Man, those two are going to wreck." And I don't want to be a part of that. So, you get your spotter, helps you quite a bit. And the one thing I can say about Bristol is that as a driver, we're always looking out ahead. We're never really looking behind. That's where you guys come in. And a lot of times you'd make a move, you'd see something happen, and you'd move to the outside. And, the spotter-driver relationship would be that the guy's not looking behind him, but he's got to make a 1/10 of a second decision, move to the outside. So you just do it. You just move to the outside. And a lot of times the spotter will say, clear on the outside, because seeing something going on. So
the thing that drove me crazy with this, and so Nick Payne spots for Sawalich, I would have quit. I already did quit. This happened to me a couple years ago with somebody else, and the second he blamed me for the wreck that obviously wasn't my fault at the time, I called him that day and said, all right, we're done. I'm not spotting for you anymore. Because, for one, Nick was giving plenty of information. Nick, I think, got 10 or 11 checks out, check before William Pilot. And I don't know, but this goes back to what I think we talked about here last week with Hirschman, just zero accountability. Like, I get it, whatever. Maybe you didn't hear Nick, maybe whatever it is, but, somebody's got to tell this kid, listen, I know what you said there. You didn't get the message that they were checking up, but Nick was telling you. So either you didn't hear him, or now you're just throwing Nick under the bus for no reason whatsoever. And somebody's got to get to this kid and go, hey, listen, that's not right. And either I haven't even looked, but I haven't seen anything reposted about him going, all right, what I said in the interview was wrong. My spotter didn't screw up, because that's what happens. And nobody has the information that we have where we can go back and listen to the audio and say, I saw somebody who posted the video, but So somebody just watches that interview and goes, God, Nick must be terrible. How could he not tell him that they were, that was happening? And that's the that drives me crazy. Like, just have some accountability, or even after the fact, when somebody tells you, this is what happened. The guy was telling you to check up. Why didn't you? Then have, all right, it wasn't on Nick, it was on me, but to this day, now here we are 3-4 days later, and there's still no accountability. I get it. He's frustrated. He's having a bad year. This is not what they hoped for. You come out of ARCA, and there's a lot of comparisons to, Conor Zilisch and William Sawalich, and you look in the standings, and Conor's up there 5th in standing in the points with a win already, and Conor's 23rd, I think he was, and struggling.
There's a lot of things that go into that.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna keep quiet on this one.
It's first time for everything.
I'm gonna be politically correct.
It's just listen, especially this is for unless you know for a fact. And listen, Bubba there's been times where I wrecked Bubba. It was a race at Vegas where we were racing 3 wide into 1, and somebody spun out off of 2, and I was so focused in my binoculars on the battle trying to get him clear off of 2 that I never saw the guy wrecked. And Bubba saw it last minute. It looked a lot like the Brennan Poole wreck the other day, where Bubba saw him last minute, tries to yank the wheel to the left, hits him with the right side door, and wrecks bad. And I'm like, that's 100% my fault in my mind. Whatever. In my mind, I'm like, I f***ed that up. I didn't see that guy. I should have done a better job. And after the race, I think it was even Yoakum was like, your spotter didn't give you the man. Bubba was like, no, that's on me. I should have. So don't go on TV and blame other people, even if it could be their fault. Don't whatever happened, move on. But the second you go on there and start taking, putting blame on somebody else, especially on your own race team, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, he's
there's no
he
needs
to slow down a little bit. He needs to understand that now he is driving a car that has a lot of equal talent, not only equal talent in the field, but equal money.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So there's no longer, dominance of money. Now it's talent. You can put when you get in these 3 series,
that's where it levels out.
It all levels out. So he just needs to slow down a little bit and, like you said, have a little bit of accountability and work a little bit harder at his craft instead of blaming others.
And the one thing you got to think about is every car has got a steering wheel, a brake pedal, a gas pedal. So, when you run into somebody, well, you could always get off the gas. You could always get on the brake. If you know somebody's coming down and you might have 4 inches in on them, he's coming down. You guys are going to wreck, or you're going to wreck
it's up
him.
To you.
There is a thing called a brake pedal that you might, give up the spot, but there's, 300 laps left.
Yeah.
So, and then just like your point, the B man, just step up. It's nobody's fault. You're in there by yourself. All people doing around you are helping you, your crew, even the people back in the shop, your spotter. So, as a driver, it's really in your hands. So you got to take responsibility for that.
All right. There was only one natural caution on Sunday's 500 lap race at Bristol. Spot on, spot off. Who did I ask last time? You?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
whoever you feel. What
do you feel like? Let's ask you.
What do you think? Honestly, this is actually a good question for you. And it's not just this race, but any race that kind of gets strung out. How's that watching it on? We ran whatever the last stage was, 230 something laps under green.
Kind of like Tommy said earlier. On TV, it is boring to watch because they can't cover everything that's going on the racetrack. But when you're there and you see it in person, you're in the grandstands. There's other going on. There's other things to watch. So, I'll be honest. I didn't get to catch a lot of it on Sunday because I was driving back from Cordele, but. I think I got home in time to watch the last stage.
But the Cars Tour, if you have but you still had what is it 45 laps?
Yeah.
So if they run through green for 45 consecutive laps, they throw a caution. Is that something you like about the Cars Tour more so than we ran?
No, they don't need that. They have their enough cautions. Their racing's longer than the Cup race.
That's where it kind of started. I think that triggered the show at the end.
Yeah. Yes and no, right? Because again, especially this weekend, there's a lot of good racing going on everywhere on the racetrack, and ours didn't really get too strung out where they were running around there, not racing side by side, and it wasn't fun to watch. So, yes and no. Sometimes I think for the entertainment factor to bunch them back up, and for the fans in the grandstands, they might appreciate that, but on the topic of this weekend exactly, no, I don't.
You know what I love? I mean, being a fan watching TV. Well, why don't we put it out to the race fans? Because how about when there's a lot of cautions and they're like, NASCAR throws too many cautions?
Yeah.
Well, now there's none or
Yeah.
one. All right. So was that a really good race because there was not a lot of cautions, or was it a horrible race because there wasn't a lot of cautions? And then when there is, why is that such a bad race?
Exactly. They can't win.
So it's
So I'm sure this is for both of you, really, but I'm sure that was really dependent on how your car was running. But how did you feel about? I mean, you lived the era of the phantom debris caution that happened. You know, it's before stage breaks. We had stage breaks before. They're just didn't give any points. But you know, like if you're running good, you just want to keep going. But like, would you prefer a race that obviously you don't want a race that's ever caution marred? But if you're on a 200 lap run at Bristol, you would just keep running, like no matter how you're running.
I mean, I always love to race, and you know, the cautions, cautions breed cautions. That's entertainment. You know, that's television. That's good for the fans. Bunching the cars back up again. I see why we have these stage breaks and stuff now, but you know, the old era of Richard Petty leading the race or winning a race by like 3 laps is, you know, something we're never going to see anymore. But I was always a true believer, if you brought the best car to the racetrack, you would want it to stay green as much as possible, especially like Larson.
Yeah.
You know, had the best car out there. And even when one caution did come out, he still showed he had the best car. But so there's no win. I don't think there's no answer, or there's no win to what you like, what you don't like. But I always liked the less cautions, the better the race was, because there was less cars crashing.
What do you like, Freddie, with baseball? Do you like to go 9 innings, 3 hours and 15 minutes, 12 to 10 game, or a 0-0 game? What do you?
Yeah, I prefer probably a pitcher's duel, to be honest. You know, I prefer just like I say on here all the time, and I get for it. Like, I just want like the purest form of anything. You know what I mean? Like I rather that race yesterday. I know it's Megan on the way home was like, I can't believe they didn't find a way to throw a caution. I'm like, I'm glad they didn't. Yeah. And we were struggling. You know, like we were backing up at that point. We were 18th, 19th. Just, I mean, I really, really wanted a caution when we stayed out. We were running third, and I'm like, we could flip the whole script right here. But like at the same time, I don't want a bull caution. I want, somebody to get, and I told Bubba this early in the race. We were obviously all concerned about tires beginning the race, and Bubba started to use like a little bit of a diamond line, and we were concerned about running the outside again because nobody really knew what was going on. And I said, listen, the way this is playing out in the beginning, nobody's racing each other. Like the second you get underneath somebody, they just lift and try to get in line. We're not going to have a caution in this stage the way this is going. Like, no, unless the leader gets there and some guys get a little rambunctious around the leader. I said, we're not going to have a yellow here, so you're going to have to make these tires last 120 laps, and this was like, 60 laps into the run, and that's just kind of the way the whole race played out. There was no, and maybe that's a product of, we always say these cars are a little too easy to drive. We saw more spins in qualifying than we saw in the race on Sunday. So it's just, but I was 100% fine with it, even though we were not having a great day. Like, I just rather. Like we talk about, a caution's a caution, and if it's not warranted, don't throw it. And I was, and you're kind of the same boat as us. Obviously, wanted a caution sometimes, strategy-wise, but you're struggling a little bit. But I think that you don't want just I don't want to throw a caution every 100 laps just because we might make it a little boring.
Yeah. I mean, that was the purest ass kicking there was, right? It was
good to see.
Yeah.
Somebody doing a great job.
That was an old Nolan Ryan no-hitter there, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that kind of leads us into our next spot on, spot off topic. Kyle Larson led 688 of 800 laps on Saturday and Sunday. And much like Tommy has said multiple times today, Denny Hamlin said we should not throw mud on the racing because someone goes out there and dominates. Spot on, spot off, Tommy.
Yeah, I mean,
we just talked about it.
That's what racers do, man. Yeah. We go to race and go to win. I mean, I don't have any issue with it. I don't. I mean, just because I wish the fan from the TV to the stand could see.
Yeah,
it was,
and maybe that's something to talk. Maybe that's something to talk about. I mean, TV covers the top 5 guys, maybe top 4.
Yeah,
and there's other battles going on all the time, and people say, "Well, that was a boring race." Well, maybe it was boring watching it on TV because they were just covering the leaders. It would almost be something to think about. And I'm not a TV producer or
You're not?
nothing.
I thought you.
But I'm
that's what
just
you're
saying,
doing
wouldn't
now.
it be nice to scan back, especially when there's no cautions?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like a rain delay. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, we're looking for things to talk about. Well, let's go back to some other races that are going on for 20th.
I always say the best race on the racetrack is the Lucky Dog race. If you just go back
Priest-
and watch that,
Did you
or
see
follow it
Priest?
out, yeah.
Priest, he got the lucky dog 3 times in a row. You know,
Yeah,
both
yeah,
the
caution
caution
and
and
the
both
stage.
the
Yes.
stages. But he was a nemesis to the 5 car.
Yeah.
I mean, drove his ass off to get that lucky dog and got the 71 at the end coming to the stage break. But yeah, I mean
that's the battle. I mean, that's always a battle. You know, if you're ever looking for a battle, just figure out who the Lucky Dog is, because those guys are racing their asses off.
And that's a good point. That might be something that, you know, the TV should start to look at, especially when there's a
They didn't have to
long
look
green
hard
flag.
because it was with the 5 every
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
The thing
He was
was
making the lucky
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah, the thing that I like for me getting to scan around a little bit, you know, we're running the bottom and we got a little bit of gap and stuff, and you look up and just watching Larson carve through traffic was unbelievable. And he was he can say whatever he wants. That son of was on a mission to lap the whole field on Saturday. He was asking people. You can hear his radio. He's asking, how many do I got to lap down? How many more to go? And if that race, thank God for stage breaks, because if we didn't have stage breaks in that race, he would have lapped us all.
Yeah.
Like it was not going to be.
He pancaked the wall with 3 to go. Did he ease up for the last couple laps? I don't think so. You know, I'm like, man, this guy's going to throw it all away.
Yeah, it's you know,
He just did a
and
phenomenal
the thing,
job.
you know, I saw people, you know, radio, this car. How can you blame the car? You know, you're talking about the boring race or whatever. He did the same on Saturday.
He should have won all 3, right?
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
and that's the car on Saturday is the one everybody says this thing puts on the best race ever, and this is the best car. That I don't know why the Cup car, this that. You don't want that kind of in that Xfinity car, because we might not ever win again. You know, he said this a couple weeks ago when he said, I'd have 50 wins already if we running the last generation car. And listen, the other thing I want, we talked about this last week, a couple weeks ago after Martinsville. Everybody's like, we need the Cup guys back in the Xfinity races. You sure? Sure you want that?
Yeah.
Because this is what you're gonna get.
yeah.
I mean, that was Saturday. I mean, it was impressive yesterday. Denny could at least kind of hang with him a little bit, have a straightaway back or so. Saturday, he was in his own world. That was not even, it wasn't a race on Saturday.
You always got to talk about Denny.
Well, yeah, he's good.
Denny's great. Denny's great.
Oh, it's actually Denny.
Oh.
Changing his tune.
I don't even know what he was talking about. He called me Frat Freddy the other day in a group text, and I don't even know. I don't know if he was saying I drink too much, which is possible, but I don't really drink that much. And then, or he just misspelled fat. And either way, he can kiss my ass. As far as that.
All right.
So we're mad at Denny this
just
week.
to clear that up.
He misspelled
I mean,
it.
he's still great because he still signs my checks, but that text was unneeded, I think.
How about Denny when he won the last 2 at Bristol or 3?
He had won the last 2, yeah.
Well, if Kyle Larson wasn't there, he would have won that one.
yeah, exactly. And then 3 in
Kyle
a
won
row.
the last one, didn't he? Yeah, Kyle won the fall one.
So Denny won the last 2 springs? Spring and fall. Oh,
Yeah, I think they're both pretty good.
turns out
Yeah.
they're decent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Karsyn, anything got you? I mean, I know you're a little fired up about your weekend. How was the rest
She's
of your
tired.
week?
I actually do have.
Here we go.
And it does go along with Cordial. I got called a by a fan in the grandstands this weekend.
So they met you.
I got to get this guy's name.
Yeah.
Shut up, Tommy.
Look at his resume.
There was something else getting you fired up. The stage breaks. You were fired up last night
About stage
them
breaks?
taking so long.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah.
should have talked about that on the caution. It was. I think it was 15, 16 laps. And listen, they were doing it on purpose. It wasn't like, they were just lost. They were doing it on purpose to burn laps because they're of the tire concerns. But it was unnecessary once we saw the end of the first stage. I seen some guys maybe had a little bit of cording at the end of a 120-lap run, but that was just because we talked about the great, racetrack started off fresh. But, yeah, we ran literally. I mean, stage breaks are there usually, I would probably say, 8 laps, I would think. You run 2, they open pit road. You run 2 laps under pit road opening because you got to go cycle both sides. So that's another 2, 1 to go. So it's probably 8, 9 laps of caution. You add another 5 or 6 to that every time, and you're sitting there, you're just riding around. I know the fans in the stands had to be driving them crazy. They're probably a commercial on television, I hope, because they didn't have to just sit there and watch that. But it just seemed unnecessary to me why they did that. And I didn't understand. I understood why the first time. I remember last year, we did it last year once we saw all the show, and I understood that because now if we kept going, we were going to run out of tires. there was no concerns of tires after we got off the first stage break, and we just continued to do it all race long. It just seemed unnecessary to me, and it was annoying, I would say, slightly.
Okay, so
was that okay?
Didn't they have a concern? They had a concern for tires in the beginning of the race.
In the beginning,
Goodyear released another set.
Yeah. So Saturday was a jelly. We were courting tires, but once I got it. Once we read the first stage was fine. If you want to add laps to that first one, okay, see. But then once we saw the tires come off the cars after the first stage, and Larson never really, he ran as hard as he could for 120 laps and never had a problem. Okay, we don't need to do this anymore. I got to the first stage. We burned 15, 16 laps, but now, all right, that's fine. We just move on to our normal procedure.
With everything that's happening in the economy, it feels like we're all walking on shaky ground. Prices are stuck at a really high level, and it seems like nothing is affordable anymore. It's no wonder many are relying on credit cards to cover the gaps. Credit card debt is skyrocketing, and it's leaving a lot of people stressed out. If you're a homeowner, you don't have to face this uncertainty alone. My friends at American Financing can help you take control. They can help you access the equity in your home to help you pay down that high-interest credit card debt, giving you peace of mind and real savings. On average, people just like you are saving $800 a month. Plus, they may close your loan in as little as 10 days. Don't let the chaos of the economy get the best of you. Call American Financing now. It costs you nothing to get started, and you may delay 2 mortgage payments, giving you a cushion in this uncertain time. Call them today at 866-889-5022. That's 866-889-5022 or americanfinancing.net/door. NMLS 182334, www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. It's time for Reaction Theater, where fans can call in and voice their opinions from this weekend's race.
Well, I guess Hung Mummy had that thing wrapped around his race because he actually won this one. Of course, if I had rubber that good, I wouldn't have any kids.
Wow. Was that a caller?
Yeah. So we get people call and leave voicemails throughout the weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That was funny.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Thank God Fox zoomed in real close so I could count the dots on Kyle Larson's car instead of watching the race between Ryan Preece and Michael McDowell.
So he's talking about zooming in on the leader instead of kind of panning out. And I think that's one of the things that we struggle with. We get so zoomed in. First of all, you lose all the sensation of speed, I think, the closer you get to the car. And then you lose the peripheral of, what's going on around the leader. And then, like you said, if you would have zoomed out a little bit, you would have caught that battle between Preece and McDowell for the lucky dog.
To this day, I don't care what anyone says. Being at the track as a fan is way better than watching it on TV.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was going to say that earlier. Just not only can you see more racing going on, the atmosphere is just better than being by yourself on your couch at home.
Yeah. I wanted to give Harvick because he spent the entire qualifying session talking about, I don't know why these guys are running 2 laps. They're just putting an extra lap on their tires, and it's they're going to be screwed later. And I'm like, can somebody go to the booth and tell Kevin we don't have to start on these tires?
Yeah. Well, I came up with a great idea.
Okay.
I mean, when
I'm
you're
scared to death.
when you're in a booth and you're doing television, you're supposed to watch the television monitor and talk about what you see on the television monitor.
Yeah.
Why don't they do the opposite? Why don't let these analysts see what's going on the racetrack and then have the camera follow what they see on the racetrack?
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think Clint and Kevin and Mike, I think they're doing a phenomenal job on TV, but they're talking about what they see on TV. And then they go off on a little bit of a tangent that it would almost be nice to see something similar to what they're talking about. But when they see something on the racetrack, you can almost hear their voice struggle not to talk about it because they got to talk about TV, they got to talk about what's on the screen in front of them.
I know Dale talks about that a lot. But it's important to him to be because some of these now they're not even at the racetrack. The Xfinity broadcaster in a studio here. And
wasn't Jamie saying the other week that they're fixing to go completely to
probably
not having the analysts at track and be.
And Dale said it's a big deal for him to at least even see somebody coming, like we see the one car coming on top last night. Dale can be like, this guy's taking off, like you said. But like Dale said, he struggles because he wants to look out and look for battles when there's really nothing going on, and you're kind of locked into talking about what's on TV.
How about that finish? Watching them two swap the lead back and forth, come down to the final moment, that was epic. To see Rory finally win the Masters was just that was so exciting.
Meg,
So
I
excited.
had no clue what he was talking about for a
I was
second.
saying, I knew
was like,
it
when
was-
they swap the lead.
I knew it was going to be some kind of wise ass. I think it was like, oh, he's either going to go one, but then I realized it's Masters. But that was an epic finish.
Epic.
Yeah, we're going to Ireland on Wednesday, and I was like, I hope they don't burn the whole country down. But Duggar informed me that maybe Northern Ireland and where we're heading, there's not exactly they don't get along. Maybe so. I think we're heading. We'll be fine.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
Hey, Meg surprised me. I didn't know it was happening either.
well
Meg
excited.
Meg and Duggar.
Whose birthday?
No, we're just going. We were supposed to go around Christmas, and they couldn't. We bailed and went somewhere else, so they surprised me with this trip. Told me on St. Patty's Day. So
I guess we're off on our own.
I mean, there's,
on our own.
there's planes going. You guys want to come? I mean, we still got 3 days.
Can we stay with you guys?
Yeah, I don't care. Meg will be happy to see you, I'm sure.
Scott home from the fastest Bristol race I've ever seen. Hear Denny talking about how track temperature seems to be the tire problem. Somebody needs to call the damn NHL. Freddie, call your buddies over there. We need to get that Miami outdoor game in January where it's 80 degrees technology to keep the ice cold on the Bristol surface somehow. Maybe I have to keep the track cold if the tires wear out.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew brought this up in our group text last night. I thought it was a good point about, maybe you're walking a fine line because talking about moving the race up in the schedule. Is it beneficial to move the race up in the schedule where it may be a little colder and the track temp will be lower, so you see the tire wear, you see everything, but then you get into the fan experience of, does the fan want to be sitting in the grandstands when it's 40 degrees outside? And like that race on Friday night was kind of miserable for the fans. It was kind of damp and wet and 30, 40 degrees, whatever it was that night. So it would definitely, we talk about it all the time, hot, slick racetracks, are the best racing a lot of times. But then you also have a fan sitting in the grandstands and it's 110 degrees, so it's you got to weigh the on-track product with the overall fan experience sometimes. And it would be better racing if the track was colder. Or I shouldn't say better racing. It would be more of a entertaining race, a bit of a show if we were just wearing tires out like we did on Saturday. But yeah, I don't think you want to put fans in the stands when it's 30, 40 degrees outside.
Oh, well, the track might, and beer sales would go up.
Yeah, I was going to
It's
say, personally, I'd rather freeze and watch a good race than sweat and be bored.
That's true.
Steve, huge fan of yours, man. Got a quick story for you. I was laying in bed one night in elementary school. My mom storms in my bedroom, hands me the phone, and says, "Here, someone wants to talk to you." I'm like, "Okay." It was you on the phone. My grandmother's phone. You met her at a Longhorn Steakhouse bar after the Atlanta race. She was talking to you. You said, she had a grandson that was a real big NASCAR fan. You said, "I want to talk to him, call him." And so she called me, talked for a few minutes, became a huge fan of yours after that, and been following the sport since.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool. And, sort of my personality was, I was always amazed. I mean, I grew up, on Long Island and, never asked to be, rich and famous, just wanted to be one of the best race car drivers. And, when people like, appreciate what you've done in your career, it's, people come up to me and say, "Well, my son's your biggest fan." I'm like, "Where's he at?" "Well, he's home right now." I'm like, "Call him up." And they call him up and I talk to him on the phone. I mean, what's the big deal? It's so
take
easy
5 minutes
to
of
do.
your time.
It takes
Yeah.
5 minutes. And I always love to tell a story because he brought up the steakhouse. And I was at a steakhouse in Florida. And as I'm sitting down with my family and my son, I'm looking and I can see this guy and this woman, and they're looking and talking, looking over at me and talking. I'm like, oh, race fans. And next thing you know, they get up and leave. And we finish eating, and then we order dessert, and we're eating our dessert and stuff, and we're talking, taking our time. And we paid a bill, and maybe an hour after they left, we get done, pay the bill, walk outside. They're sitting outside on the bench. And they're like, "Mr. Park, we're waiting for you to come out." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You've been waiting here for an hour?" I'm like, "Why don't you just come over and say hello?"
Or blow up on my dinner.
Yeah.
Because you're so cheap, you would have been happy.
I wouldn't have ordered my dessert.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And but it's just so funny because then you stop and take pictures.
He had in his head they bought him dinner.
Yeah,
That's why he ordered dessert. Because he never gets dessert
when they
he's
brought
paying.
me the bill, I was mad.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, them some sitting by.
No, but it's just funny that people think of the race fans as being bothersome, and they're not. I mean, how respectful is that? and then wait for an hour.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. Like somebody would wait an hour for you to come out just so they could say hello. And I'm like taking pictures and signing stuff and talking to the kids and making it an experience that it takes you no effort, no time, no money to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you see me out and you're waiting to say hi, don't just come say hi because there's no telling when I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
How often is that going to happen to you, Freddie?
And then it happens often at big houses.
and then if I call you fat, it's PHAT. Man, you're fat on that show, man. You're kicking it on the show. That's fat.
Megan, last night we were driving home and she said, you could tell Steven that he broke my heart. And I was like, uh-oh. Like but Megan's dad was Donnie on the 8 car with you guys?
Yeah.
So he was
the tire guy.
He was the tire guy, and she said, when he and everybody
and her
in the
mom
world,
Carol, she worked on our team.
She was a scorer.
She said, everybody in the world. Steven announced he's moving to North Carolina. He's going to drive the AC Delco car, and everybody in the world. I mean, back on Long Island, it was like we knew it. One of our guys made it. We're all cheering together, and Meg's like, I was heartbroken because that meant he wasn't driving the 8 car anymore. I was like, so I'll be happy to tell Steven you've ruined my wife's life when she was 12 years old or whatever it was.
Like I said, I've known her family and Carol and Don, and I mean for so many years, and we all grew up in New England racing together, and what a great family. And somebody, you talk about families that dedicate their lives to racing. That's all they ever wanted to do, and that's all they're probably still doing, even in retirement. I know they're supporting us.
He came with me. Donnie came with me to the Rockingham test. He's like, "Can you mind if I just ride down and hang out with you?" I was like, "No, absolutely, come on." So he loves it. So
Well, to leave an audio message 24/7, you can call our number at 704-802-9572, and we'll play the best ones each week on the show. And it is now time for Ask DBC, where you can send in your questions on X each week using hashtag AskDBC. Jessica would like to know everyone's thoughts on NASCAR going back to Rockingham.
For me, obviously, Rockingham. My favorite story about Rockingham recently is, have you heard this stuff about Casey Kane? Casey Kane's going back to run. Yeah. He's running Richard Childress' car this week. So he's on Dale's show, or he told Dale this before the show, I think. So he signs up for the race. We had a test about, a couple months ago. And Casey shows up and he goes, when did they pave this place? He thought it was going to be old, worn out Rockingham, and he's going to kick everybody's ass again. Yeah. But now they're going to be hauling ass at this place on Saturday. When it was Friday and Saturday, I guess the races are, or was it post-Saturday?
Friday's a truck race and Saturday's Xfinity. Yeah. So I got with Casey, when we got together there, and the week leading up to Rockingham, I gave him an egg.
Put it under the gas pedal.
No, I said, I want you to carry this. Every time I see you, wherever I'm at, wherever I'm doing, I want you to have this egg in your hand or in your pocket. And Casey, he's so quiet, he's so bashful. He looked at me like I had 10 heads. He's like
a real egg,
real egg, not
an Easter egg.
Nope, a real egg.
Hard boiled.
Nope, not a hard boiled. A real egg.
What's a trick?
And I said, I want you to hold. He's like, why? I said, because I am going to remind you that with your gas pedal at Rockingham, the whole race, about the egg and the gas pedal, and don't break it. And he's like, okay. So all week he held on to that egg, all week. And it was about 30 to go, and he's second, right? His battle in Kenseth for the win in his rookie year. Finally, it's like 3 to go, and I'm like, would you take that effing egg out of the gas pedal? And I think we lost by, I don't know, a half a bumper or something. But, that was every time he see me, he showed me the egg, It was pretty cool.
Obviously, Rockingham has a lot of meaning to you. That was is that your biggest Cup win probably, or most memorable, I should say?
No, I think Watkins Glen, only because Dale was still with us.
Yeah.
Rockingham was emotional, but I always go back. When I first went there in the Cup car, we were like 25th, and I'm like, man, I just, I feel like I'm driving the hell out of the car, and I can't get no speed out of it. And Dale says, he says, next practice, he said, I'm going to meet you out on pit road. Get out as early as possible. So we get out early, and Dale's at the end of pit road, and I come behind him. We pull out on the track, and we pull out on track, and we're going through the gears, and we're racing, and I'm following Dale, and he's going to show me the line around the racetrack. Well, I almost wrecked him because we're going down the front straightaway, and I'm like 2 car lengths behind, and we go off in turn 1, and all of a sudden, like probably, no exaggeration, like maybe 15 car lengths before I would ever lift off the gas. He gets off the gas, and I am just on the brakes trying to slow the car down to keep from running into the back of Dale. I'm like, the hell is he doing? And next thing you know, he's like, wow, through the corner on the gas, and now I'm 4 car lengths behind him. So we go down the back stretch, and I'm running down the back stretch, and all of a sudden, he just takes his foot off the gas. I almost run into the back of him again. Get the car slowed down. I get to the bottom of the track, and now he's 6 cars in front of me. I'm like, all right, I see what's going on here. And, it was the same deal. And then he also told me one of the things he said, the hardest thing is you got to control, we talk about tires, and talk about Rockingham wore tires out like crazy. And he said, you gotta remember the start of the race, you're going to see a car go past you, and you're going to see the sponsor on the back, and then you're going to see that sponsor disappear. He says, but I guarantee you in 20, 30 laps, you'll start seeing that sponsor get closer and closer and closer. And you don't even it was like taking candy from a baby. It was like, you know what? They're going to run like a rabbit, wear their stuff out. And once they wear their stuff out, they slow down 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And if you just maintain a moderate pace, but as a race car driver,
it's hard.
How do you, yes, cars are leaving you and disappearing into the sunset. You just want to go catch them. And it worked out for us. And I would say, we did the gas strategy. We ran out of gas on the last lap. We didn't have tires. We didn't have gas. We stayed out, did the track position thing, and just from conserving tires, we just barely had enough to hang on at the end. So, but that's how you win Rockingham.
Yeah.
You guys got any show nominees for the week? Leave the card store out of it. I'm just going to say that right now.
Well, sorry.
Oh, you said
sorry,
it.
Karsyn.
You said
They're
early
gonna be on the
before
list.
we were on. You said.
I said I might.
Let me tell you my show of the week. Okay, Meg came with me to Bristol, so we're in bed the other night, and this is not going where you think it is. Don't worry.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
She is in a panic, and I'm like, "What are you like?" She's throwing pillows around and looking. And I'm like, "What are you looking for?"
Did she think you lost your wallet again?
No. She goes, "I can't find my glasses." So I let her look for another 2 or 3 minutes, and she's throwing around, and she's getting frantic. And
They were on her head.
I said, you mean the ones you're wearing? And she's like, oh my god, and she just laid back down. I was like, okay, babe, good job. Maybe it's time for bed.
Or what?
I don't. Do you think? I think I finally drove her to the point where she's just lost all of her marbles.
Bless.
So Meg might be mine, but I think Car Store is probably going to have to get an honorable mention.
Were they running out of gas, or just what was the story there?
I think 1 or 2 late model stocks ran out of gas towards the very end. But that was...
It was just...
But we were close to a lot more people running out of gas.
It was just,
We just ran too many caution
You mentioned
laps.
it earlier. Cautions breed cautions. Mm-hmm. I know Dale said about, there was burning laps under yellow, maybe 1 or 2 extra each time. But... it's just you throw that comp caution after a 45-lap run, and it just mayhem. And basically the restarts. It was. I know
the restarts were what was causing a lot of our issues.
Karsyn Lofton did a really good job. Drove back up into the top 5. He missed a shift. He's the one that ended up taking Dale out. Yeah. But somebody else, I think, was
Mini Tyrell missed a shift.
Mini Bassett. Did Bassett miss one? I know he got collected in one where somebody
he
missed.
got collected in
but it was just
the fifth
it seemed
one.
like every restart it was a big pile up into one because somebody was missing a shift
because they can't seem to figure out how to operate the restart zone.
I don't know what transmissions they're using, but Dale said he's like, well, we are using these old antiquated transmissions, and I'm like, well, don't you own the series? Like, you can probably do something about this if you don't like the transmissions you use.
I will say, it was while I don't
$7,000 transmissions.
Those ones, yeah,
they're not cheap.
Never mind.
But they're pretty good.
Yeah, but who else? You got any?
I don't have any.
Modified race is good. Poor Luke got
really good.
Poor Luke got the boot on the last lap.
No,
Clean,
we didn't get the boot. It was good racing,
It was
man.
not bad. It was not dirty. He just moved him up racetrack.
Yeah, it was good racing. They ended up second. 13-year-old Paulie Hartwood did a really good job. I think both of them did a really good job. Luke tried to bait him to go to the outside, going into 3 on the last lap, and Paulie said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to push you to the outside and get underneath you," and he did. They both did really good, and Paulie did a really good job of saving his tires, running about 4th or 5th the most of the race. Luke,
and he's 13.
13, yeah, he's going to be He's going to be a good one.
He's an 8th grader.
He's an 8th grader. And he's been racing along his whole life, and he's been running modifieds for 3 years now, believe it or not. But he's a good racer, and Luke controlled the whole race. Probably a little bit too hard, but I think the way that the racing's going, you're going to have to do that a little bit more. But Paulie did a good job and finished.
And you got to beat Hirschman. So
was he there?
He was there. I never saw him on TV. I know Tony, Big Tony called and said, "It's nice you go down there, waste your money, just ride around 6, saving tires, and not have anything left to go."
Yeah, when it was time for him to go, he
Yeah.
he didn't have anything left. He was a little off. The only time I seen Matt all night was he had to jump out of his car right before the race, and he had his helmet in his hand. He jumped over pit wall, ran into the trailer. I'm like, what the hell has he got going? He must have had some radio problems, but yeah, he struggled.
I don't know. I guess Brendan Poole, we got to put Brendan Poole on the list just because of the aftermath of what was later across the front straightaway.
The wreck was a show.
Yeah.
Not Brendan
Poole's fault, but it was a show of a wreck. Any short track stuff? I don't.
Did
I don't.
You guys find anything? I don't
see anything
crazy going on. No tow trucks flipping over.
Cars Tour show.
Always.
You could put Meg. You could
Always
put Meg on
is
the
a
list.
stretch. I'm gonna need you to back her down.
I mean,
there.
let's get this shorter.
It's
these
Carson's
races.
fault.
Yeah.
Let's blame Carson.
Yeah. I mean, it's really good racing, but
you want to put that guy on the list? Call him show.
What guy?
Your friend from
The guy that called you.
Oh yeah. Not much.
Not much. It was a pretty uneventful weekend.
We could maybe instead of nominating the Cars Tour as a whole, can we just nominate Doug for being in the watermelon fields?
Poor Doug.
Poor Doug.
Poor Doug.
If we do if this poll makes it to Twitter with our mediocre nominations, you can go vote on it on, well, not
Hope
Twitter,
Meg
X.
wins. Vote for Meg. They're not going to be able to hear this, but the
Hashtag vote
poll's
for
going to be out
Meg.
before they hear this. Poor
Vote
Meg.
for Meg.
Meg and her glasses.
Yeah, Meg's glasses.
Well, just so she doesn't feel bad,
you do that all the time.
I usually have my sunglasses on my hat, and then I start yelling at people like, "Did anybody see my damn sunglasses?" And they're all looking up at my hat. I'm like, "Oh."
It's a common occurrence.
I always thought that was age, but Meg's not old enough. Not old enough to forget where she
yours
put her
because you
glasses.
hit a couple times.
No,
It's not
I know.
age.
That's what everybody wants to blame.
All right, let's get into some DBC picks.
Oh, Hirsch
won last week.
The guests are kicking our ass.
No,
now.
and I said this is the second time some insider trading has happened and they
That's
won.
true.
Like Hamlin picked Logano, or not Logano, God, what am I saying? Bowman. And then Hirsch picked Ty Gibbs, and then they win DBC picks.
Who?
So you got to pick this week, Steve.
We're on page 3, Tommy.
I know, but who printed this page? Now I got to look at 2 of them.
Hold on.
What are you
Let's
picking
fix
for?
it.
Oh my God.
Now we go.
Who's got this glue stick?
See, I fixed it.
Okay, so who does pick? Did we
I
ever
pick first.
Ready?
And what are we picking for?
Talladega.
Talladega. But the ones that are highlighted in dark
Yeah, so
gray, you can't pick.
You can't pick those guys. Over next page. Sorry.
Yeah, next page.
So you're the
No, the next page
you're
after
the
that.
guest list over here, and then you can't pick the highlighted guys.
I can't pick the highlighted
No.
guys.
Tal or Dager. Corey running?
No.
Okay.
Martin
Are you
Truex.
No.
Martin Truex is running.
No.
No, he ran already. He ran Daytona. Somebody picked him. I will take. Who the hell do I want to pick here? This is kind of a layup race. It's not a layup race. I'll take Austin Cindric.
Nice.
Who goes next? Me?
Sure.
No, me.
Oh, no, Tommy.
Oh.
Then you, then Steve.
I am going to go with Chris Buescher.
Busher.
I'm going to go with Josh Berry.
Josh Berry. I see a trend. A lot of Fords.
I was thinking J.J. Yeley, but I hit my head. So. I'm going to go with Chase Elliott.
Chase Elliott.
All right.
That's good. Yeah, Rockingham, I know. I'm not going. Are you going?
I'm going to go Friday, Luke and I.
Luke's
just
not
to be with
racing
the,
there
no,
yet,
just to be with the 66 guys.
That's good. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting race. You know, again, I'm kind of the racing purist of it. He wishes it was still the old worn out, but I'm sure they had, it's been years since we raced on it, so that surface was probably falling apart. I went to the test, and it's going to look nothing like the Rockingham you remember. They are hauling ass through there. So it'll be an interesting race. I'm worried it might be difficult to pass because, we see this a lot. New pavement, kind of become a single lane deal, I think. But it'll be fun to watch at least. I mean, just the fact that it's so different from what you're used to seeing at Rockingham.
Don't like it was fast back then for the first 2 laps. On Saturday mornings when we used to have to practice at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, that place was fast.
Are the trucks running wide open for a lap?
I'm sure they are.
They were definitely. I mean, they'll probably definitely qualify wide open, I would assume. But I mean, it was pretty close to wide open. I think I didn't do a truck for the test, but
you're not testing. You're not spotting for the Xfinity.
No, that was part of my deal. I'm taking my Cup off weekend off.
Okay.
We only get one this year, so I was taking it off.
Meg's probably happy.
Who's spotting?
Greg Stump from Off Axis is filling in. He's our second spotter when we do the road courses, and he's been with Sam forever. So I walked into Sam's office. I got to ask for 3 things. It was money. I wanted to work with Chris Bowen, who was the crew chief over there, as a friend of mine that I've known forever. And I said, I'm not working Rockingham weekend. And he's like, okay, I can sign off on all 3 of those things. Wow. So it was, it's a good deal. And it's fun over there. Sam just paid me while we were sitting here recording. So
he Venmos you?
He did.
They Venmo you?
Yeah, it's a new world, Tom. Welcome.
I don't even know. I don't have Venmo.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. Karsyn, were you off to anything this week? You racing?
No.
Millbridge?
I race Wednesday, and we're going on a family camping trip for Easter this weekend.
Right.
Where you guys going?
I don't actually know.
Who's included?
It's like an hour and a half away. Actually, it is my mom, LW, Kennedy, Wyatt, and my dad. We're all going on a...
He's in town?
Yeah. He's been here for the last 2 weeks.
Jesus. All right, Jimmy. Thanks for texting us.
Another invite.
Yeah.
I know. Well, and he's got to go back to California, I think, after this race this week, and then he'll be back for a majority of the summer. So
nice.
I'll tell him to hit you guys up if you're not too mad.
We're right here.
Come hang out. Well, I think that'll do it for this episode. Steven, we appreciate you dropping by finally. I mean, I've been asking you for years to come on here. You've been blowing me off.
Yeah. He texted me like Friday. Can you come on Monday? Yeah. Answer was like, yes. I'm like, remind me on Sunday when I'm flying back.
All right. Well, it was good to see everybody. And where were we? Just Bristol this week. I saw a bunch of people down by the bottom of the elevator through some of the suites.
I will say, I met a handful of DBC fans at Cordele this weekend too. That was
surprising, right? People actually listening.
I know.
That guy knew exactly what to call you.
Yeah, that's maybe how that guy knew I was a yeah, sure.
Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks again, Steven, for dropping by. Thomas, good luck Wednesday. We'll see you guys. We will not be here. No show next week without the Cup race. Plus, my fat ass is going to be in Ireland drinking.
Thank God, I get a week away from you guys.
You get a little reprieve from us, Karsyn. We'll be back the week after the Talladega race. Thanks for listening. We're out.
Peace out.
Peace out.